Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. Jenny Wise here from WiseMind Yoga Psychology School. So welcome, welcome, and WiseMind Soul Warrior. And so I'm so honored and so excited to have Chrystal Joy Brooks on with us this morning. She is one of our beautiful soul sisters. She's in the process of getting ready to graduate soon. So I'm super excited for her because she will be a graduate here in just a little bit, probably about a month or two. And so if you would like to start with sharing how you and I connected, how did we connect?
Okay. Well, actually, I found you, Jenny, through, I think, a social media ad. I had been looking at different yoga teacher trainings, trying to find the right fit for me. I'm a stay-at-home mom of four. I homeschool. So I was looking for something a little bit more flexible because doing like an immersion wasn't really in the cards for me at this point in my life. And I got on a call with you, which was great. It was so like heartwarming. Like I don't know, I felt your energy and it was just wonderful. You were so kind and explaining everything to me, and it just felt like a wonderful fit. I love that your program covers like the neuroscience in addition to all of the like energy work and like the way everything's connected, the mind and the body and the spirit. And that was just that was really big for me because that's exactly what I was looking for. So yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that. And it's interesting that you say that because a majority of the students that I interview like this, when I ask them what it was like getting on a call with me, they say it was like getting on a call with a friend, basically. Like it was just like very chill. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because I'm not like a pressure person, right? It's more like a consultation call. We're going to get on, you're going to talk about like, here's the things I want to do. Here's the thing, here's my goals, like whatever your dreams are, as far as if you are a yoga teacher. If you're struggling with certain things, we're going to talk about that. And then here's what I would recommend, right? So it's pretty much almost like, in some ways, it's a free coaching call in some ways.
Yeah.
Because I literally am just there to listen and then give you the information you need to make a decision. So, and you and I definitely was like an amazing conversation when you have like that type of immediate connection. And you and I connected in so many ways. So yeah. And yeah, so I just want to share that. I'm just putting that out there because I am not somebody who's going to get on and I'm like, if for those of you out there that your inner critic voice is like scaring you, right? And you're in fear and you've been waiting on the sidelines to schedule a call with me, now's the time to do it because we're doing calls still through this week. And so if you've been waiting on the sidelines and you've been watching the Silence Your Inner Critic all week, or maybe you haven't, but maybe you've been following me for a while, or maybe you just met me, right? Maybe like you just saw me on Facebook, right? So that's one of the reasons why we do these interviews, so that people know that like I am like legit, like I love and care about all my students, and everything that I teach you guys, I've gone through in my own healing journey. So there's nothing that I don't teach or no transformation that I've not gone through myself that I'm not teaching students. Yeah. And if you don't want to be a yoga teacher, that's totally fine. Like that's totally cool. Like this isn't just for yoga teachers. If you're a mom, if you are a professional, an entrepreneur, a therapist, a coach, whatever the thing is, like you can go through this for your own healing and transformation. And oftentimes students get inspired to want to teach it because they want to share it because it's transformed them so much. So speaking of which, tell us a little bit about your personal like yoga journey and what brought you to yoga as well.
Okay. Well, first I wanted to say I was one of those people that was scared to get on a call. I was very nervous, but because I didn't really have a lot of set questions for you, and I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I just felt like this was right for me. So like getting on that call with you and having that first conversation was so like, it like calmed my nerves so much because it did show me that even if I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with this, that this was beneficial for me and this is the next step that I needed to take in my journey. So I thank you for that, for just being you and being so warm and inviting and accepting and sharing your own journey.
Oh,
So
I
yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Um,
I'm here to like support. I really want to be a light to other teachers and coaches and women in general, right? Whether you want to teach or you don't. I really want to be here to support women supporting women, women empowerment, women showing up in their purpose, living their best life. And I'm here from like personal experience that unless you release the things that aren't serving you, you can't completely move forward into stepping into your purpose, like period. So you have to be able to let go of the past, let go of the generational trauma, let go of childhood and relationship and all the things and be able to identify that, which is part of what we do, which are, you can share. And you can't live in the present moment either if you don't do that, right? And then you can't move forward into what you're meant to do, what your calling and your purpose is if you've not let those things go. Right. So I'm a living testimony of that. I know you're going to share your testimony. And this is one step in that process. So I'll say one more thing. Like to your point, I hear that a lot where students were like, when I interview them, they're like, I was scared to get on a call. Like, it's like, don't be scared. Don't let your thinking mind and your ego talk you out of it, right? Because that's what the brain's job is. It's going to tell you all the reasons why not to get on a call with me, right? I don't have the time. I'm too busy. This won't work for me. Jenny's going to be pushy, whatever the thing is. Like, this is going to be a sales call. It's not going to be a sales call. I promise you. I'm not here to want to talk anybody into like, we need dedicated students and committed students in this program because this work is super important in the world and we need yoga for mental health in the world. So we're here to find and seek students like Chrystal that are dedicated, committed students. And whether they want to do this work on themselves or they want to take us out into the world, that's who we're looking for. Okay. All right. So with that,
okay.
tell us about your yoga journey. Like what
Okay.
brought you to yoga and meditation?
Okay. So, well, to start, I grew up in a very strict Christian home, very religious, uh, Pentecostal, like all the things, fundamentalist. And I had started a mindset journey in 2020 and just trying to get in a better mindset because I had struggled with anxiety and depression and postpartum depression and ADHD and all the things that go along with that. And I had a lot of like self-sabotaging tendencies that I didn't understand why. Like, I knew that I was kind of preventing myself from growing in certain areas, but I didn't understand why or how to change it. So in like doing some mindset work, I started to just open up more. I started to kind of make that mind body connection, and learning about the mind and how it works, and um, my journey. And then I just kind of had this remembering of who I am and why I'm here, and wanted to dig deeper and learn more about it so that I could help other people. And so I started doing yoga along with my mindset stuff and realized like there's so much stored in the body that like I need to learn more about that too. So that's what kind of got me into wanting to learn about yoga and yoga psychology. And then I found you.
I love that. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so grateful. Like, so it was like such divine intervention that we connected. And it's interesting when you have those types of conversations because, as you know, we both have struggled with depression and anxiety in the past, right? And so trying to find a way to heal generational trauma and identify the things that are attributing to our symptoms of anxiety and depression, right? And
Mhm.
for me personally, like I had to figure out something holistically that worked because medicines don't work for me anytime I've tried them. So figuring out breath work and yoga and time in nature and meditation and prayer and music and essential oils and all the things, like all the list of things that we can go to because this program is as much about stress resilience and life skills and coping skills as it is about learning about yoga philosophy. Does that make
Right.
sense? It is a mix of truly like personal development and healing and transformation as much it is learning about the koshas and the chakras. And
Right.
I developed it that way on purpose, where I've integrated what I used to do one-on-one with yoga psychology clients, and I've given it to you guys. So it's like you're sitting down with me one-on-one through videos and handouts and journaling, and I'm giving that to you guys to be able to use with other students as well, whether you're a coach or a teacher. You can do this in groups, you can do it one-on-one. You can create
Or
your
I do
own.
it with my family. I've been doing it with my children, like breath work and some of the body movements. They aren't as great with staying for a whole like yoga session, but I still like have been teaching them like the Nadi Shodhana breath and like the other things because my children are all neurodiverse and have some just really big energies. Some regulation, like self regulation, is a challenge for them. So this has been so like integral, like in helping us work through that together as a family, and it's been wonderful.
I love that. That's amazing. That makes me so happy. That brings me so much joy. And I wanted to mention that too, that we open it up to the family. Like when somebody, does the tuition and stuff, like we give it to the entire family. So for those of you out there, like Chrystal has 4 kids. Other of you may have 2 kids, however many it is. Some of you may have tweens, teens. She has young kids, which is absolutely amazing that you're teaching your kids so young these breaths. Like that's incredible. That makes me so happy because you're teaching them self-regulation skills, like you said, at a very young age. And they're way ahead of a majority of kids if they know how to regulate their emotions. Like that's huge. They can regulate their thoughts and emotions. That's amazing to learn that at such a young age. And I did want to mention too, like you and I both grew up in the church, right? So I just want to mention that, like side note, that there's religion and there's having like a personal relationship with God, right? And so even though I grew up in the church, I'm very much about like spirituality, having a personal relationship with God, and integrating that into my practice. And
Yes.
some people choose to do that and some people do not, and that's totally fine, and it's open for everyone. So I'm just sharing my personal testimony of what's worked for me, that yoga's helped me open my consciousness and open my mindset and help me to live my beliefs and live my yoga on and off the mat, like even beyond what I thought I possibly could before I started yoga. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So just side note on that. Okay, so if you could share for a minute about your experience, like what are some of the things that you've seen on your own personal healing and transformation through this program that has helped you, whether it's with depression, anxiety, whether it's different samskara patterns. Like I don't know if I don't remember if you struggled with perfectionism or imposter syndrome, or what are some of the samskara patterns that you identified that were attributing, to some of your symptoms?
Well, definitely imposter syndrome, the people pleasing and good girl syndrome. And I think I am identifying the perfectionism, but that was like something I didn't ever think was me because I felt just so like scatterbrained and like I was just easygoing and let things go. But then I realized as I got into it, like, oh, I'm not like focusing on what I want because I want it to be a certain way. And I feel like if it's not done that way, then I'll be frustrated. So I just let it go. So it's kind of like covert perfectionism, if that makes sense, that I'm recognizing and have been recognizing. I'm like, okay, but it's also part of like it's helping me learn more about myself because um, as mothers we tend to put ourselves on the back burner in our marriage and motherhood or whatever. My husband was in the military for a long time, so I was like doing a lot of the parenting solo for a long time. So I just kind of brushed my own needs and things and desires to the side just so that I could pour into my relationship and my family. without realizing that, you know, my desires and the things that spark joy for me are actually the most important because they're what fill me up. And like, if I'm not pouring in myself and like loving myself from my heart space and like really truly loving myself from the inside out, like it makes it harder for everyone around me to love me, and it makes it harder for everyone around me to love themselves, especially if they're feeding off of my energy, like my children and my husband. And that's something that I've recognized because they're all like mirrors of us. I'm recognizing patterns of like still where I will sometimes fall back into people pleasing or like the good girl syndrome and like just do things because I want to make everybody happy instead of thinking to myself and taking the time to breathe and like check in and see, no, this is what I need right now. And by doing what I need right now, it's going to make everything else flow better. It's going to make everybody else have a better time and a better energy. And like just everything goes smoother. So that's like a constant back and forth and coming back and remembering to meet my needs and to pour into myself so then I can pour more into them, because when I'm not pouring as much into them because of not pouring into me, it just gets kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that's a big one for me.
Yeah, that is so interesting. That's such, again, a huge aha for you to be aware of that um, early on, right? Like in your motherhood journey, that you do need to like not do the people pleasing, right? Because again, as mothers, we do the whole self-care is selfish, right? And then we
Yeah,
put ourselves last.
yeah,
And then you can only do that for so long before you end up burned out, or like what happened to me, I had a full-on breakdown. So it's like you can only put yourself last. That only works for so long, right? It might work in the short run, but it doesn't work in the long run. Um, and to your point, the more you fill yourself up and the more healed you are and the more joy you have, the more you have to give to everybody else. Like you just said, the more unconditionally you accept yourself, the more radically, you accept and unconditionally love, the more you have to give to everybody else.
right.
Right.
And it also strengthens like our spiritual relationship, like with God. It's not just from me. I know, like coming from a Christian background, and I feel like sometimes people look at self-care as selfish and they're like, well, you should get it from God, but it's the same thing because God is within us. He's within all of us. So
Right.
like pouring into ourselves and loving ourselves is a way that God is loving us too. And it's a way that we're connecting to spirit, and so that we're able to give a more authentic love instead of just like an act of service, which I think is act of service is beneficial and wonderful too. But when it's coming from a place of authenticity and a place from love, because you feel fully loved yourself, it feels completely different to the receiver too.
Mhm.
So I think that was a good thing to touch on, especially because I feel like many people that haven't branched out of religion and like touched into more spirituality, it kind of seems, I don't know, maybe scary or just like we're being selfish, but that's not really what it is.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I totally agree with you 100%. Because I did that for so many years. Like when my daughter was younger, I had a similar experience. Her dad wasn't in the military, but he did travel for work. And so there were, I don't know, probably at least 4 years, maybe more, that it was almost like being a single parent. Like he was gone Monday through Thursday. And so it took a lot for me to like make sure I was taking care of myself. But oftentimes I did put myself last because I was focused on her, making sure she had what she needed. But then I was also working full time too. So I was juggling like a corporate career with being, taking care of her. And then I did definitely put myself last, in a lot of ways. So I've had to kind of learn that the hard way. So that's another reason why I'm such an advocate for talking about these things, about yoga for mental health, about daily self-care, you know, that self-care is not selfish, because I've lived the other side of when I was not taking care of myself and where that ends up, if that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
don't want anybody else to have to go to that point before they start taking care of themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, like learn from me. This is another reason why us being vulnerable and authentic and transparent about our stories and our experiences, even though sometimes it might be uncomfortable to talk about, is part of our journey, is to be able to share these things with other people so that somebody raises their hand and says, oh, me too. Like, I'm not feeling alone, especially when it comes to other moms, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of times we just like guilt ourselves about so much stuff, right? That mom guilt is a real thing. And especially when it comes to taking care of ourselves, and then especially when it comes to investing, right? In like a program like this, right? For example,
Right.
like we come up the list of all the reasons, right? And you and I work together to figure it out so that we can make it happen for you, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
that's another thing for me to mention, that we will work with you, as best that we can. We have multiple funding partners. We have other things we can put together, custom things. So if that's something that's holding you back, don't let that hold you back, because we're here to work with you on that regard as well. So if you are ready timing wise, you're ready energy wise, you're ready to step into healing and transformation, we will help you the best we can with the other piece. Does that make sense? So I just want to make sure I mention that. Um, and I'm glad you talked about the people pleaser and the good girl syndrome, because you know that I have those as well. So I am definitely a recovering people pleaser. That is definitely a huge trauma response for me. And I still deal with it now, still to this day on a daily basis. I would say the people pleasing and the good girl syndrome more so than anything else. Like me still speaking up and using my voice, and speaking up for what I do want, is still a struggle even today, more so than perfectionism or workaholic or imposter syndrome. Or I feel like those are a lot more healed, but I feel like I still have a lot of work to do when it comes to people pleasing. Like I still, like when I do speak up for myself, I'm like, oh, look at that. I spoke up for myself, and I'm 51 years old. So the point is, like, healing is a lifelong journey. Healing is truly, there is no destination, it's a journey. And so that's the other thing that we teach all of you, and we'll continue to talk about this, is that, give yourself mindful self-compassion, be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself, because, you know, getting a trigger, for example, is a gift. It's literally just telling you, oh, this is another area that I need to work on more. It's not judging the trigger. It's not, we had this discussion with some of the trainees last year about beating themselves up, like that they have done, say, 10 years of healing or 20 years or whatever it is. And they're like, why, I quote, shouldn't be feeling like this, right? I quote, shoulding on yourself. I shouldn't be getting triggered anymore. I did all this work. I've gone to therapy. I've done the thing. I've gone to training. I've gone coaching, whatever the thing is. But we've got to let go of that mindset, right? Because that's the perfectionism, the expectations that we're putting ourselves in a box, that we need to be in this certain box. And if we get triggered or something happens outside of that, that it's not what's supposed to be happening, if that makes sense. So we're resisting it, right? We're resisting the healing when we do that,
Yeah.
right? So,
But what we resist persists. So,
yes, what we resist persists, exactly. And we have to feel to heal,
that's
right?
right.
Allow ourselves to feel. We can't heal it. And so I invite you, if you're one of those students out there that have been resisting or, repressing and distracting yourself, like I used to do with like the busy syndrome and running around in trauma response and stress response all the time, and talking about how busy and stressed I was and like people pleasing, like all the things, right? Like running around like a chicken with my head cut off. That's what I did for most of my life. And that was the way I dealt with my trauma until I figured out what was going on, right? And I was running around like trying to get validation from everybody. And I didn't know that. I was totally unconscious of it because it was all living in my subconscious mind, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like
Same.
most of us are running around like that. A majority of people don't know why they're reacting to things the way they are or why they have the patterns that they do because they've not done this work. So this is generational trauma work. This is, this is important, serious work. So that's why we're looking for dedicated, committed students that are ready to do this work. So if you want to share a little bit about what are some of the things that you've done in the training, whether it's breath work, journaling, shadow work, soul work, the yoga practices, somatic work, like what kind of stands out for you that was the most powerful from a healing and transformation perspective that you feel has made a huge difference for you?
I don't know if any one thing stands out just because it's so like all encompassing. I know like the journaling and shadow work is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell when I'm like when I haven't been doing that in like a certain amount of days, and I can like kind of feel it in my body even if I've been doing some other things, but I still like feel like I need to journal it out to get it out of my mind and body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's been really beneficial. I love the breath work. I love the chanting actually, which was surprising to me because I feel like I'm very shy and reserved and don't use my voice as much as I feel like I'm stepping into using it. So I was kind of hesitant to like vocalize and doing those in our practices, but just something about the vibrations and like moving it out through my throat and like out of my mouth. It feels powerful and healing. So I really love that. And of course, the breath work, I use the breath work almost daily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing about that because I can definitely say for my own journey as well, like me healing my voice and healing my throat chakra, the singing and the chanting and the affirmations,
Yes.
all of it, doing a Facebook Live like this, right? The fact that, like, if I wouldn't have healed my throat chakra and I wouldn't have like healed my imposter syndrome and my perfectionist, I wouldn't be on here right now, right? Like, you wouldn't be on here right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that you're
Right.
on here right now. So, there is an actual science behind the sound therapy and the chanting or singing that it actually creates a meditative state where you're actually strengthening your vagus nerve and calming your nervous system. So there's literally a science behind singing, whether you're chanting or whether you're singing or it's an affirmation, whatever it is. That's one of the reasons, the science behind why you feel so good after you sing,
Yeah.
because it's calming your nervous system. So it's another coping skill, and it's a huge coping skill that we will be integrating even more as we go forward. I'll be doing more and more singing as we go forward with more classes that we'll be putting together because that's been part of my journey through COVID has been like even more enhanced, like singing and yoga and music and like layering these different modalities on top of each other, if that makes sense. And I already do that in the training, the way we have it put together now, but it's going to be like even like another layer beyond that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, okay. So tell us a little bit. I want to touch base really quick again on the calls, and then I want to talk about a little bit more about the training. So we talked about this at the beginning. Let's quickly talk about it again, just for somebody that might be jumping on here right now. Again, what it was like to jump on a call with me, or for those people out there that are still feeling scared about scheduling a call and they're nervous about it. Can you just talk again briefly about what that was like on a call with me and what you
Yeah.
felt like before you scheduled a call?
Yeah, I would just say just do it. I was nervous to get on a call because I didn't have questions, like set questions to ask you. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with the
Mhm.
program. I just knew that what I read about and saw that you were offering sounded like it resonated and it could be helpful in my journey. So I made the call and I got on, and it was wonderful. It was I don't know. I feel like I need a better way to describe it. It just felt like we had a soul connection, I guess. And you were very warm and welcoming and informative, like because I was nervous that I didn't have questions. I wasn't sure like what to ask. It didn't really matter because you already knew like what you were offering, obviously, and just welcomed me and met me where I was at and
Mhm.
explained to me, how it would work with my schedule and all this stuff. It was really great.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to bring up. I'll mention this again too, is again, I'm listening to hear what are you looking for, right? Like where are the areas that you're looking to heal, or what would resonate for you for the training? And then I'm basically gonna be like, okay, here's what we do have. Does this match up? And that's kind of what I mean by it being more of a consultation, because that's truly what it is. It's you tell me, here's some things that you have questions on, here's some things you're looking for, here's what we have, and is there a connection?
Yeah.
um, and it is important to mention too about the timing part of it, because I do get that a lot. um, that we have a lot of students that work full-time, or they're full-time moms, or they might work a part-time job, they may run a business, and they're doing this in addition to that. So I would say a majority of students are in one of those categories that I just mentioned, or many that are multiple of those, right? So it's important to mention that we make it very easy, which is why we do it on demand, and then also give additional accountability to help support you. Um, like we have mentors, we have small groups, we have a Facebook group. You get me live twice in the Facebook group. So there is some accountability and connection, in addition to the fact that we keep it flexible with you being able to do it on demand, which means you can do it at any time. And you can watch it, like a lot of them are like a podcast, where it's like a masterclass style. So you can have it on your phone, you can have it on your computer, you can have it going on in the background. And then there's other classes like a sadhana practice, right, that has breath work, meditation, affirmations, or singing or chanting. And then the asana physical practice, or whether you're doing a yoga, or excuse me, a journaling exercise, or if you are doing a like soul work or shadow work, um, then you're able to focus on that specifically, if that makes sense, right? But a majority, I would say over 50%, maybe more than that, I don't know the exact numbers, but there's a big percentage that you can actually be watching it on the background. And I share that because a lot of students have shared that's how they got through the material, right? Was doing it that way. And then there's other students where like they may have watched like 3 videos in a row and like binged like they do on Netflix. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's many different ways that you get through the material. And it's important for me to mention too that if you're not able to get through it in 6 months, you have unlimited it's lifetime access to the videos. So it's okay if you don't get it done in 6 months. So we don't put pressure on you about that either. So it's important for me to mention that. Okay, so mention or talk a little bit about the learning management system, like and some of the, our e-learning platform, and some of the things that, the mentors and the small groups, and like just your experience with like the framework of the structure of the program, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a great experience with LMS. Like you said, all the videos are in there for all the lessons, and it is easy. I've done both. I've gone in and like benched 2 or 3 lessons at a time when I had the time, because I don't always have the time every week. And then other times I'll turn on the lesson like while I'm cooking dinner for everybody and I have my earbuds in. And then um, I like to do the sadhana and meditation and asanas usually by myself, but also I'll incorporate them with the kids too. So it's been really easy and great. Just navigating it all.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it, or I do still love it. And I love that we have lifetime access because I feel like I'm gonna definitely be going back and rewatching some of them after I get through it all. I want to go through it all. Um, yeah. And then our small groups, we meet once a month for our like kind of presentations, but it's very relaxed. It's not pressured. And the student teacher that's there is very helpful to like guide us and give us tips and ways that we can modify if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
And then each student that is in the cohort kind of gives our feedback and like our experience through it. And I really liked that too because you get different perspectives and the way that different bodies react to different things and how one person might have liked this meditation a little faster and one person might have liked it a little slower. And it's really cool to get that feedback in kind of a class setting if like you are going to be teaching it like I would like to teach. So that was cool. And then our group actually decided to meet a little bit more often because I just like getting to know people and I feel like it's more beneficial in our time like that we're spending in our studies, to be able to talk about it and see what people are experiencing and what they're going through and ways that they're transforming and growing because ultimately like we're all here to heal and here to help others heal,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is just for ourselves and our immediate family or we want to help other people outside of us and like make a business of it. um, it's still like beneficial to be able to talk about it with someone like face to face on a Zoom call or something, and kind of share. And it doesn't have to be sharing too much. It's really just like we're getting to know each other and becoming friends. But also like we're able to support each other because for me at least as a stay-at-home mom, like homeschooling, I don't have a whole lot of adult interactions in my day to day. So just getting to like be on here and have that connection with my little class that we meet with, it's been really heartwarming. And beneficial to my own growth because it helps me see like, okay, I'm putting way too much pressure on myself right now. Like I need to like pump the brakes a little bit, take some more breaths and just know that I'm on the right path and I'm not like there really isn't a timeline. Yes, we have like 6 months for our certification and everything, but it's really more about the soul healing that we're doing than trying to meet requirements for anything. And it's been wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you call it soul healing. Um, One of the other terms that I love, like soul work, soul healing, soul scars, is another one that comes to mind of like healing our soul scars, right?
Mhm.
Um, because we all have soul scars, every single one of us. And if we could all heal our soul scars, the world would be a different place, right? We would have so much more peace, so much more love, like more people living in their purpose. Um, but yeah, that's definitely a huge part of, again, why we do what we do. Um, this is well beyond like a program. It's like you said, it's much more about soul healing, soul work, soul care is another word we use. Soul care, soul sisterhood. Healing your soul scars. This is definitely about like creating a community. And part of the reason why, again, I put this all together, the many reasons, is because some of my deepest relationships have been from other soul sisters in yoga that I connected with. I have friendships that have been very deep, intimate, transparent, vulnerable relationships that have lasted now some of them going on 10 years. And so that was another like huge motivation and inspiration for why we continue to run all this. Is it's much more like a movement than it is a program. Does that make sense? Even though we call it a program, it's well beyond that. It's also building a community and building teachers and leaders and coaches and mentors that can take this information and put it out in the world. And whether it's as a teacher or a coach or a ministry or as a mom in your own family, right? It doesn't have to mean that you're going to step out and teach to everybody. And the other thing is that you don't need to know that, right? I've had these conversations many, many times. You don't need to know if you're going to teach if you don't start with the intention, right? And we've had other students that started with the intention of teaching and then didn't end up teaching, right? In fact, my journey was when I started my first teacher training, I didn't think I was going to teach. I had no intention of teaching. I just wanted to learn more about yoga. And I just knew that it was working for my mental health and my emotional well-being. And I wanted to learn more about it. And that's how I started, right? I literally had been in yoga for 3 months and joined a teacher training. And within 6 months of that, I was teaching my first yoga class.
Wow.
And the only reason I felt comfortable, well, not the only reasons, but one of the reasons I felt comfortable is because I had come from a background of group fitness and teaching yoga class or teaching fitness classes. And so again, right, talking about a story of God equipping you, right? I always believe he's always working on you in all these different phases, even though you may not know what he's preparing you for, but he's always preparing you for something. And so when I was doing the group fitness, that prepared me to step into teaching yoga and feel comfortable in front of a group, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you want to talk about crazy, Chrystal. I went from never teaching before to teaching like 50 to 100 students in a class.
Wow.
Yeah. Because what happened was my first training before I did yoga psychology and went out to LA for 2 years was actually at a very large wellness center. And so yoga was one of the things that they offered in addition to, Pilates and group fitness and all the things. And so this very large new center opened up in North Raleigh and it fit like 150 people.
Wow.
So that's just it's crazy. And I'll tell you an even crazier story. I know we only have a couple minutes here, is I used to play some different like inspirational music that was more like soul-centered music when I was at this other place. And I played what I was allowed to play, right? Because there were certain limitations of the music you could play.
Okay.
Some of the music was like Christian based. It was more like inspirational music, but it wasn't like super in your face, just inspirational. And I had teachers come up to me at the end of class and other people that recognized the music I was playing. And that's part of what connected me to how I ended up at the studio.
Wow.
From a place 45 minutes away that I had to drive to every week to teach to 3 miles near my house to where I ended up opening a yoga studio. So those are the kind of things of like divine intervention and the dots that universe, God, higher power, whatever you want to call it, can only put together that we could never even fathom or do ourselves. That's, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I could talk about that for a whole hour because I'm a huge believer in that, in case you can't tell, divine intervention and serendipity and all of that is happening for us. Even the things that are hard are happening for us. So I so appreciate you taking the time. This has been super, super helpful. For like sharing your experience and with yoga and with the program. So thank you so much. And I will put the link in the comments to set up a connection call this week. And if you are being one of those people that are waiting, no more waiting. do it now. Just like Chrystal said, just
Yes.
do it and don't let the fear stop you and the inner critic tell
Yeah.
you why not to do it. Okay?
You have nothing to lose to get on a call.
Yes, nothing to lose and all to gain. So I'm sending you all so much love, light, and blessing. Namaste. And again, thank you so much for your help, girl, and your support. And I'm super excited to be with you. Crystal's going to be one of the students that's heading out to Sedona in October. So I'm super excited for you to be part of that as well. So we'll see y'all soon. Take care.
Bye. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Bye.